All right, so we're going to start by making kind of the side profile of a chair here. Um, so I want to make a chair that essentially has two side panels. These are just flat, cut out of a sheet, and then a bunch of little kind of spanning slats, I guess. You'll kind of understand what I'm saying as we go along. But first we need to start out by making the side panels. So rather than starting a sketch on the origin plane, which is what comes up here, I'm going to offset from that origin plane. That's going to, down the line, make things easier when we go to mirror this side plane to the other side, because we need two sides. So I'm going to use my offset plane, which is the default selection up here. You can also drop this down and do offset plane. And I'm going to offset from this right. So if I'm looking at here, it's the right plane here. And I'm going to offset this, let's say 6 inches. So I noticed as soon as I clicked on this that this document is in millimeters. I'm going to override that by putting the little quotation mark after the 6. That's telling you that I want inches. You can also type IN, and it's going to know that too. And then before I do anything else, because I'm modeling this one in inches, I'm going to drop down my document settings up here and click on the edit tool because it's in millimeters and change it to inches. Yours might already be set to inches. I personally have my Fusion defaulting to millimeters because that's what I normally use. But in this case, we're going to model in inches. So I'm going to click OK. And now you notice the grid changed. That's because now it's displaying a grid for inches rather than millimeters. So now we have this. I'm going to turn the visibility of the origin on. This is your standard origin planes here. We have this one now that's offset from that origin plane. So I'm going to turn this origin back off. And I'm going to create a sketch on this origin plane. The offset plane? Yeah. So let's see. I'm going to delete both of these. And the offset plane is this button up here. It's under construct. You can drop it down and do offset plane. It should also be the default. When you hover over it, it's going to tell you what you're doing. And I just click on that, and then I'm looking at, if I want this to be the front of my, let me change my display environment so that it's more like what you guys might be seeing. There we go. I think that one's the default. So I want this to be the front of my chair, right? And we're making the right-hand side, the panel on the side of the chair. So I'm offsetting from the right side. And you do 6. You can do, what I'm looking for is essentially half the width of the chair. So maybe we want it a little wider. Maybe we want the chair overall to be like, I don't know, 16 inches wide. Probably would want more than that even. Let's do 10, just to be safe. You can always go back and change this. That's the other nice thing about doing this on an offset plane. So I did my offset plane, I did 10 inches, and I'm going to click OK. The nice thing about doing this on an offset plane is down the line, if you decide, wait, I want my chair to actually be, 15 inches wide, you can go back to the very beginning and just edit the offset plane and change this to be whatever you want, and it'll automatically update the width of your chair because of the way we're going to model this. So there is some, asterisk to that, which is if you model it correctly, that's what will happen. So does everybody have this offset plane here on the right-hand side? Cool. All right, we're going to create a sketch on it. I'm going to click on my Create Sketch tool up here. And then I'm going to choose that plane that we just created. It's going to automatically snap me to looking at this side. Let's see, let me pull up my chair heights here. Okay, so I have, okay, so my seat height that I'm going to do is 18 inches. So I'm going to start off by creating some construction lines just to give me a sense of space for my chair. So looking at the side of a chair, don't follow along for a sec, I'm just going to show you. In really simple terms, this is the side profile of a chair, right? So I'm going to basically create that out of some construction lines just so that I can have my, can kind of understand my chair in this case 2D space. So I'm going to start by pressing X on my keyboard, and that's going to toggle your construction to, or your line type to construction. You can also click this here. What matters is that this should be highlighted blue. That means you're in your construction mode. And then I'm just going to slap a rectangle down. I'm going to press R. You can also click on the 2-point rectangle here, up in the top left. And I'm just going to draw a rectangle anywhere. I want it floating generally centered above the green line, or on the green line and above the red line, but we're going to come back in and we're going to dimension this and constrain it. So the first part of constraining this is that I want this to be centered on this green line here. So in order to do that, I want a point on the midpoint on one of these lines that I can then constrain to be on this green line somewhere. So I'm going to drop down create, and you've got a point tool just above the text tool. I'm going to click on the point tool, and then you'll notice when I hover over near the center, I get the little triangle icon and it snaps to the middle. That means that's the center. All you have to do is click, and now you have a point that's placed there. For now, this little icon here on the bottom, this is showing me that I have a constraint. I'm going to hide these for now because I have a bunch of them. They just kind of are visual noise right now. So I'm going to toggle their visibility off on the right hand panel here. Just keeps things cleaner. Okay, so I have this point, but right now this point isn't really doing anything for me. I need to constrain this point in relation to the origin here. So I'm going to use the coincident constraint, and this is basically taking two different points that you select and forcing them to occupy the same space, if that makes any sense. So it'll essentially force this to snap down to this as soon as I click here. So if I do that one more time, I'm going to undo. All I did was click the coincident constraint so that I have that toggled on, and I just click 2 points that I want to be touching. And now I have my bottom line perfectly stuck to my center origin point. So if I click and drag this, it won't let me move it. You'll also notice it's black. That means it's constrained. These are still orange though because they're not constrained. So I'm going to use my dimension tool, or you can press D, just turns on dimension. And I'm going to click on one side and then the opposing side. It's good practice to get in the habit of, instead of, right now there's kind of two ways to dimension this width. I can dimension this line from this line, and I can set that, or I can dimension this line itself. Best practice is to be dimensioning these two opposing lines, just because down the line, if you decide, hey, I want to fillet this junction right here, that'll start throwing stuff off. You'll lose all your dimensions. So try and dimension two objects from each other when possible. So I'm going to click on one side, click on the other side, and then I'm actually going to put this on the bottom because later on I'm going to have some more stuff going on up here. So I'm going to drop this down here. I'm going to click, and then it's going to allow me to type in my dimension. So I want my chair to be 16 inches deep. So I'm going to type 16 and hit enter. Everyone's following along? We're going to set the height of our chair now. Again, we want to dimension two objects in relation to each other. So I'm going to click on the bottom and this top edge here, and then I'm going to set this dimension at 18 inches, and then click OK, or hit enter. And so now I have, this is essentially the seat of my chair. This is what I want my seat height to be at. This is essentially the ground plane where your chair is going to sit. And then this width is a general idea of how wide I want, or how deep I want my seat, essentially, because we're looking at our seat as though this is the side profile of it. So this is the depth of your seat here. Okay, now that I have my construction lines, I can actually start making my shape here. So I want some curvature to this chair. So I'm just going to start out with a couple of circles. And these are going to almost function, if you look at like a side-on view of someone who's drawing like a leg, if you look at the knee, they usually have a little circle, and they have a circle at the hip and a circle at the ankle, and they kind of connect those with lines. I'm going to do something kind of similar. So I'm going to use these points that we've already laid out and created to start off with. So I'm going to make my circle. Oh, and you'll notice as soon as I drag out here, I see that this is a dotted line. I don't want my my lines to be construction anymore. I want them to be solid lines. So I'm going to hit escape and press X, or click on this to toggle that off. And then I'm going to open my circle tool back. And now it's a solid line. In this case, I'm going to set this diameter. This is kind of arbitrary. You kind of need to take into account when you're building your chair, though. Like, if you go too narrow, you're not going to have stability, and it's going to be a really weak chair. So this chair that I'm designing today is not going to be ready for production, so it's not a huge deal, but we're going to get in good habit of it, and we're going to put this at, let's say, 3 inches in diameter, and then I'm going to click enter. And I'm going to do the same thing back here. I'm going to do 3 inches and then hit enter. And then now I need to start deciding how I want my chair to be shaped. So I have these lines here kind of guiding and dictating the depth of my chair and the height of it. But I don't want my legs to be perfectly vertical in my chair design. I want them to splay forward and backwards just slightly. So I'm going to toggle my construction line type back on by clicking here. You can also press X on your keyboard. And then I'm going to draw a line. You can also press L or click this top left icon. From the center of this point here, just diagonally down. Because, you know, like I said, we want this to splay out a little bit. And then I'm going to click and place that line. There's no dimensions on it at all right now. You can move this around wherever you want. We're going to fix that. So I obviously want my legs to touch the ground of my chair. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that this point is on this red line. The easiest way for me to do that is to use this horizontal vertical constraint. So this is going to, once you select this, it's going to let you click on two items, usually points, but you can do line segments as well. And it's going to snap them to be perfectly horizontal from each other or perfectly vertical, whichever one it's closest to. So right now this is closer to the red line, so it's going to snap it to be horizontal. If this was closer to the green line, it would snap this point to be vertical with this point here, which is what we're going to use to create the relationship. So I'm going to do horizontal vertical. I'm going to click this one. I noticed it's already blue because I had it selected before. I had selected horizontal vertical. But if I didn't have anything selected, I just hit escape a couple times to drop my tool and drop all my selections. I'm going to click this. It's not yet blue, so I'm going to click it to make it blue, and then click this one. And you'll notice now it's snapped to this line, and if I try and move it up and down, it won't go up and down. It only is going to let me go side to side. So now the only other dimension we need to make is how wide this splay, the splayed leg comes out. You can either dimension this from the center point to this point here, And the way I'm going to do it, I just hit escape a couple times to drop that dimension. I press my D key. I can click on two lines and dimension their angle as a relationship from each other. And because this rectangle is all black and fully constrained, it's only going to move this line. So I'm going to put this, let's see how 10 degrees looks. Yeah, that's probably about right, because I want my leg to come down and then come forward a little bit. And then I want the exact same thing on the other side. So I can either redraw this and create these dimensions again in this constraint relationship, or I can just mirror it over. That is why I built this rectangle perfectly centered, or one of the reasons I built it perfectly centered over this green axis, is because it makes it super easy to mirror. So I'm going to click on my mirror tool up in the top left. Everyone's following along? Everyone's feeling good? Cool. I'm going to click on this mirror tool, and I'm going to have this little dialog box pop up. So right now I'm in the object selection. So any objects I select right now are going to be, get mirrored. In this case, the only one I want to mirror right now is this construction line here that I just created. So I'm going to click that. And then it doesn't automatically switch you to the mirror line. So you need to tell it, okay, now I'm going to select the mirror line by clicking select. And now it's highlighted blue. So now it knows whatever line I click is going to be what it mirrors this over. So I don't have a vertical line drawn, but that's fine. Because I created this on that green vertical axis, I can just toggle visibility of the origin on, and I have this perfectly vertical axis already. So I just clicked the eye next to origin to turn it on, and I'm going to click on this blue line here, and you see kind of the ghost of this line, and then if I hit OK, boom. Now I have this line perfectly mirrored, and I can turn off the visibility of my origin because it's a little distracting. So I had a quick question there about why her view looked like this, where you can kind of see these in a 3D. Make sure, at least for now, when you're designing in 2D sketches, keeping things in orthographic is going to keep things a lot cleaner. So that changes to like a 2D projection rather than as you'll see it in the real world, which down the line will be useful to visualize before you make your chair. But for right now, while we're working with 2D sketches, it's a lot cleaner and simpler to work in the orthographic view. So that's just under your display settings. In your camera, go toggle here. I'm going to keep mine ortho until later on once I've created my chair. Okay, so I have these, and then I also want a chair back that has kind of a nice shape to it. So to create that, I'm going to make sure I'm still in construction because we're still just laying out the side profile of this chair. And I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to go from this point here up just kind of arbitrarily. I'm going to just drop this somewhere, and then I'm going to drop one more vertical line, and then I'm going to click on this little check mark or hit enter on your keyboard. Either works. And so now you're starting to kind of see the idea for the shape of this chair come together. So in this case, these are still orange, which means they're not constrained. So we want to do that. In my chair, and typically you'll have the height of the chair back be roughly 18 inches. So I'm going to dimension that. So I'm going to do that one more time. Undo this. So what I did is I did my sketch dimension, and then I'm dimensioning the very tippy top of the back of my chair from the seat height. So I'm going to click on the seat, and then I'm going to click on this top point here, and then I'm going to drop that dimension over here and put 18, and then hit enter. So now I have this, once it loads, locked, and so it can't move up and down. It can move side to side. We're about to change that. Can't move up and down. That's what we want. So now you kind of have to decide how loungy of a chair you want. The farther you move this back, the more you'll sit back in your seat. Same with an angle here. If you were to angle the seat back, that's something to consider. Like, is this chair a lounge chair? Is this chair a work chair? Typically, restaurants or at work, they want to keep you kind of upright. It keeps you more focused, I guess. That's a whole ergonomics conversation, but that's what I'm creating here. So I'm going to keep this distance from this line and the back of this seat pretty close. And I'm going to dimension this. So I'm going to click on this back, and I'm going to click on the center of this circle here, this point here. And I'm going to put that at, like, let's do 2.5. So 2.5, and then I'm going to hit enter. And now this line is fully constrained forward and backwards, but this line's still yellow or orange. And you'll notice under sketches, I don't have the red lock icon yet. That's because this isn't dimensioned yet. And you'll notice if I drag it around, things start going all wonky. So I'm going to dimension this. In this case, rather than dimensioning angle or anything, I want to dimension how high or how tall the vertical back is in relation to how tall this kind of diagonal portion is. This diagonal portion isn't going to have support, so to speak. Once this is in 3D, the backrest is going to sit up here on the top. So I'm not worried about this kind of coming diagonal. But I'm going to dimension this point. I pressed D. I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to dimension it from the seat height to be, say, 5 inches. And then I'm going to hit enter. Cool. Things are starting to get a little messy with all my dimensions and everything. I want to toggle the dimensions off. I already know that this is set to what I want it to be. I can turn it back on later, but it's just visual noise right now. So I'm going to toggle dimension visibility on the right here. So I can kind of start to see the shape of my chair come through a little bit more. Okay. The length of it? Let me toggle my dimensions back on. Click that check. I did 5 inches from the seat height to the top of this kind of diagonal line here. So we've got our side profile layout going. I'm going to turn my dimension visibility off again. Now we need to start roughing in the actual shape of the side of this chair. So I used these circles because I know I'm going to have a relatively smooth, organic shape to my chair. So I'm going to stick with that, and I'm going to make another circle at the junction point between these two lines by pressing C. And I think I did the last one's 3 inches. I'm going to do this one 2.5 so that I get a nice little bit of taper. And you'll notice this is a construction line. If I click it, press X on my keyboard, I toggle it back to a standard solid line. And then I'm going to also make sure I turn my construction lines off because I don't need that anymore. And then continuing on with kind of the tapering of this, as this goes along, we're essentially going to, when I say taper, we're going to be connecting these points like this. And I want kind of this, where the seat is, to be the thickest area, and I want the width of the piece to taper down towards the feet, towards the ground essentially, and towards the top. So I'm going to undo these lines I just created because I was just kind of helping you visualize what we're doing. What's that?
Well, what's the radius of the last that you did?
What's the what?
What's the radius of the animation?
That last one, let me turn the dimensions back on. 2.5. And then I'm going to do another circle on the top point. I'm going to do that one 2 inches. And then I'm going to do the same for the feet here. But because these feet are sitting on a flat ground, I could do the bottom of my legs rounded, but I'm going to make them flat. So instead of doing a circle, I'm just going to do a line segment. So I'm going to click my line tool, and I'm just going to drop a line anywhere because we're going to move it over in place. But first I want to set up, I'm going to place a line. I want to set up a midpoint on here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to drop down, create, go to point, and then click the middle of this line. You'll see the little triangle pop up. Just like we did earlier when we were creating this midpoint, same thing. You create the line, drop down, create, point, click the middle, and now you have a line segment with a center point, and you'll notice that center point stays in the middle no matter what I do with this line. So now I'm going to plop this line segment down here at the bottom, which is where I want it to be. So I'm just going to use my coincident constraint like we used earlier, and I'm going to click on this middle point and this point on the end of your diagonal line here. And now it's snapped it into place, but you'll notice I have little white circles even when I'm not hovering over it. That means these points aren't constrained, or essentially in this case the width of this isn't dimensioned. So I'm going to press my D key and dimension the width of these to be 2 inches. Is everyone following along there?
The last part, I'm sorry.
What's that?
I wanted on the last part, the line that we did.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so just a line, whatever.
Yeah, let me do that part one more time. So I started with a line that I drew out here, and then I created the midpoint by clicking there. And then now I need to snap this point over to this point here. So I'm going to use my coincident constraint. I'm going to click on this point and that point, and it's going to connect them. And then because these are still white, they're undimensioned. So I'm going to click on my D key, and then I'm going to dimension the white point from this point here, put my dimension down here, and put 2 inches. And then hit enter. You got that? Cool. Okay, and then we want the same thing on the rear. Again, instead of drawing it all again, I'm just going to mirror it over. So I'm going to use my mirror tool up in the top. I'm going to click on this line that we just drew. And then I'm going to tell it that, okay, now I'm going to select the mirror line by clicking up here on the dialog box, selecting mirror line, and then you'll notice I have this little purple line. Purple lines are construction geometry. It placed this line when we did that first mirror based on the origin. So now I don't even need to turn the origin visibility on to have this perfectly vertical line. It's already put this automatically as a construction geometry because you've used it prior. So I'm going to click on this purple midline here. You'll notice this line pops up, and then as soon as I click OK, it locks it into place just where we want it. Okay, now we're going to start, shaping the profile of these of the side of the legs. So I'm going to go to my line tool, and I'm going to start on this bottom leftmost point here, and I'm going to draw a line up to the circle. You'll notice as I move my cursor around the circle, it's snapping right now, and it's showing me a circle with a line perfectly on the edge of it. It's automatically, if you click right now when that's showing, it's going to automatically give you a tangent constraint. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to have this is fully constrained because I clicked when this little icon was visible. If I didn't do that, I'm going to undo. If I didn't do that, let's say I put this line down and I forgot that I wanted this to be tangent. I can just go back in, click on my tangent tool. This is my tangent constraint. And I'm going to click 2 things that I want to be tangent. Does everyone remember what tangent is from math class? Cool. So now I clicked that, and it's going to go perfectly tangentially into this circle that we created earlier. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to do a line between these 2 circles. So I'm going to start by just dropping it anywhere, because I'm going to go back, and I'm going to use my tangent constraint to put this line perfectly from the top center to the top center, or whatever's tangent. So I'm going to click there and there. And because this is already constrained to be a perfectly horizontal line, I don't even need to do the tangent constraint on this side. But if I turn my constraint visibility back on, because I want to see now, okay, what constraints do I have going on? It's showing me this is my horizontal constraint. Let's say for whatever reason the design of this chair, the front end was a little lower down or a little higher up, and this line wasn't vertical. I'm going to just select this and delete it. I'm just showing you this for the sake of understanding. Right now that I've deleted that, this can now move around because it's no longer forced to be perfectly horizontal. So I can just easily fix that by using the tangent constraint tool up here, and then click on that and the circle and get it to be perfectly tangentially related. Okay, everyone following? What's up?
Yeah, I'm following. I just had a question about that line. So basically, it like snapped horizontal.
Yes. Yes. So Fusion will try and automatically constrain your lines for you. Most of the time it's helpful. Sometimes it'll do something you don't want it to. And that's why I kind of showed you, that's why I turned my dimension visibility back on and showed you how to delete one. So again, if you need to delete a constraint, like let's say like this tangent constraint is really close to where this line meets that. So I can assume that that's talking about these two being tangent to each other. You'll also notice if I hover over it, it ever so slightly selects the circle and the line. It's hard to see, but they get a very faint outline of blue. That's telling me what the relationship is between. Let's say I hover over this mirror constraint here. You'll notice ever so slightly the one down on the other side over here is highlighting when I hover over it. So that's kind of showing me, okay, which constraint is this?
So if you go back up to that line with the one that we're talking about, it's almost like, okay, so you don't have the horizontal constraint on that because that would be kind of like over-explained. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can over-dimension and over-constrain things. Yeah. So right now I can either have this tangent constraint, which forces it to be tangent to the circle, or if I click on this and delete it, this goes blue, I lose my lock icon because this can move around.
Yeah.
But as soon as I make this one horizontal, it's locked again. So there's two ways to do that. And there's ways to transition between them like I'm showing you. You can just delete one and then constrain it a different way. But it's, yeah, very good question. That's something important to understand, is that you can always change stuff. And there's always multiple ways to constrain things.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to keep cruising along here. So I'm going to create another line. And I'm going to, let's do the back side of this leg here. We're going to do essentially the same thing that we've got going on the front. I'm going to click this point bottom right here. And I'm going to go up here until I see my little tangent constraint in blue. Means I don't even have to do anything. That constraint's already set up for me, and I can keep cruising along to the other side. So we're going to do just that. We're going to click on the other side here, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing on the inside of the leg. I'm going to click up there. I have my tangent constraint already snapped in place. I still have my lock icon. Everyone kind of following along, understanding the kind of automatic constraining of Fusion? Cool. And I'm just going to keep cruising along here. I'm going to do the same thing on this leg. I'm going to do the inside of the leg and snap it right up here. And then same thing for this center portion here. I'm going to click randomly. Right now I'm not going to have any constraints applied. I didn't see anything pop up, and I don't want anything to pop up yet. I'm just going to click between these 2 points here, and I have the blue line. So again, this one, similar to the one on top, I want it tangent to both of these circles. So I'm going to click on my tangent tool, and I'm going to click on that line in this circle. And in this case, it already has that horizontal constraint already applied, so I don't need to do another tangent constraint on the other side. Everyone with me? Cool. We're going to keep going along. We're going to do this circle up to this circle. You'll notice I have my tangent constraint that pops up here. But even though I had that tangent constraint, this line's still blue. It's because it doesn't have a relationship with this circle here. See how I can move it around? So I'm going to constrain that to be tangent with this circle here. Same thing on the other side. We're going to draw a line from here to here. It's already snapped this to be tangent, but this one needs to be set up to be tangent. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do tangent between the line in this circle. And then I'm going to finish off by drawing my line segments that go vertically up the back of the chair. So I'm going to go here. And right now I'm intentionally putting it in the wrong spot because you'll notice when this blue box appears, if everyone looks up here, this blue box is not the constraint I want. This is putting it at the endpoint of this line segment here. But I want this line to be tangent with the circle. So I'm intentionally putting it away from that box so that I know, hey, that's not the constraint that it's applying. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Because I'm going to go back in and do my tangent constraints down the line, this isn't a big deal. So I'm going to put this one up here. And it's not tangent yet. Then we're going to use our tangent tool to make it all tangent. So I'm going to click this line in this circle. Well, sometimes it might fail to solve. Sometimes you just need to give it a helping hand. Or in this case, it looks like, so when I did that, it said failed to solve. But when I went to drag this around, I noticed that this angle wasn't moving at all. And then I zoomed out and I noticed this vertical constraint here. So coming back to understanding constraints and toggling visibility on and off here, we want to delete this because this isn't going to be perfectly vertical. Because we're going from a 2.5 inch diameter circle to a 2 inch, it's going to have a slight slope to it. So I'm going to click on this constraint icon and hit delete. And now it should let me do my tangent constraint. And same with up here. I'm going to do the same on the back. I'm going to go here and here, and here and there. Again, you'll notice, hang on, it said failed to solve. What's not working here? I'm looking at these two lines and they look to be parallel, and indeed I have a parallel constraint here. That's not what I want. I want this to be tapering towards the top. I don't want these lines parallel. So I'm going to click on my parallel dimension or constraint. I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard, and now it's blue again, and I can do tangent to this circle. Does everyone follow along? There's a lot of tangents and constraints and circles and lines, but we're getting through it. All right, so now if I turn off the visibility of my dimensions, of my constraints, and even my points and my construction geometries, you're starting to see the side profile of the chair we're creating here. So this is what I have right now. I'm going to hit finish sketch, and then I'm just going to extrude all of this out. So rather than, and the reason that I wanted to trim this originally is if I hit extrude, I'm going to have to select each like little tiny segment like this. But you can also just zoom way out, use your extrude tool, and just window select everything. And that's going to select every single shape that you've created. And then let's say that I think we're making our chairs out of 1/2 inch plywood, so let's do 0.5. What's that? Oh, yes. So, by the way, you can change your select mode by pressing 1, 2, or 3. I prefer window selection, but if I press 2 on my keyboard, see, I'm going to escape a bunch of times, so I drop that and I don't extrude. If I press 2, I'm now in that other selection mode. So when I go to extrude, I'm now using this selection tool. But I prefer selection mode 1. So I'm going to press 1, select everything, and then press E for extrude. I'm going to extrude this out 1/2 inch. One small detail to account for here is you'll notice it's extruding this way, which is away from this center point here. If we want this to be truly whatever width we had done our offset plane at, we just want to change the direction here. So rather than 0.5, we'll do negative 0.5. So it goes to the other side. And that'll make sure that once you complete this chair, it'll be whatever width you had set it at, not an inch wider because you extruded the other direction. I'm going to click OK. And now I have side profile of a chair. We're just going to go ahead, drop down Create, use our mirror tool, click on that, and then for the mirror plane, I click on here to select the mirror plane and do the origin center plane here, and then click OK. And we got two sides of a chair. Does everyone have that? Okay, I think that's where we'll stop, at least for now, because it's 12. Yeah, we'll maybe continue this chair design next week. So save it.
Can you just mirror it one more time?
What's that?
Can you mirror it one more time?
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. So for the mirror, I'm opening my mirror tool right there. And then, so you saw that, drop down Create, Mirror, it's just below Pattern. I click on this that we just created, and then I tell it that I'm going to tell it which plane we're mirroring over, and then I'm going to select this origin plane here. And click OK. And then the reason that we did the offset plane is, let's say I decided I wanted this chair to be a little narrower. So if this chair should be 18 inches wide, I'm going to change it to 9 because that's half of 18. And now it's automatically updated the width of my chair to be, if I use my inspect tool and click on this face and that face, it's 18 inches, as you see. And then I can go back and change that, and I can change it to 10 inches, so it'll be 20 inches wide. Measure those, and it's 20 inches wide now. So that's why keeping everything constrained and dimensioned fully is really good practice, because I can change this to a bar stool in like 30 seconds by just changing those, and then changing this height to be, if I can pull it up, zoom in, to be 26 inches, finish sketch, and now you have a completely different chair that took all of 30 seconds to make. So that's the case for why we use dimensions and constraints the way we do. Makes everything super easy to update.
I'd rather keep mine at 18 inches.
That's fine. That's what we're going to keep everyone's at.
What are the shortcuts again for the orbit and the
For the what?
for the orbit and the
Yes, orbit and move. You're just clicking down the button in your mouse wheel. That's going to be your, this is called pan. It's also your like 2D move. And then orbit, you just hold shift and then click that mouse wheel down and move your mouse around.
Thank you very much.
Everybody good? Everyone saved? Cool. All right.